Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. So you probably saw it in the title. We're going to be looking at Maya 2022 today. Really exciting because it's a brand spanking new. It's released today and it has tons of new features. Now keep in mind that if I were to go through all of them, this would be a 5-hour video. We're going to look at the highlights. I'm really excited to talk about the stuff that I think is exciting, and I hope you're excited as well. Here we go. Okay everybody, well let's get started here. We're starting off by talking about USD. USD brand new to Maya 2022 as part of the Maya setup, yeah? So what is USD? Well, USD stands for Universal Scene Description. And what that basically is, it's a data format. It's open source. It's been developed by Pixar a number of years ago. And over the last 2 years, the Maya team has been working very hard with a number of parties, external parties, to make it available in Maya 2022. So what is it and what problems does it solve? Well, like I said, it's kind of a universal data format language, okay? So if you have, let's say, OBJ or FBX or whatnot, you're converting from one to the other and so forth and so on. If you're working in the USD format, you can seamlessly use that in a pipeline, and it makes collaboration much more efficient, okay? So what problems does it solve? Well, first of all, management of very large data sets. It makes it very fast. It's speed, 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 yeah? In addition, it's also a non-destructive workflow, which is very cool. You can have a data set loaded where you literally delete something and you will see it with a strike through. So it looks deleted, but in fact it is retrievable, so it's non-destructive, which is kind of nice, right? And yeah, for obvious reasons, it very much supports pipeline collaboration because you have that exchange of a uniform format, okay? Now, USD supports composition arcs as well. So you can work with references, you can work with payloads, variances, and it also supports sublayers. So if you have a huge asset database that you want to work with, again, it really speeds up your workflow. Now, the different formats you can find in USD would be .USD, which is either an ASCII or a binary encoded setup. It can be .USDA, which is ASCII, USDC, which is binary encoded, or USDZ or Z, depending on where you live. In that case, it's a zero compression, unencrypted zip file, and that contain ASCII or binary files, but also JPEG, MP4, and other stuff. Yeah. Now, USD for Maya has been developed, like I said, through a collaboration with Pixar, with Animal Logic, Luma Pictures, and Blue Sky Studios, to name a few. Okay. Now, the next step we're going to do is we're going to look at how this works in Maya. So let's switch to Maya and we'll take it from there. All right, guys. Well, we're in Maya 2022. I opened up an OSD scene, but we'll talk about that later. But as per usual, when you have new stuff going on in Maya, it will be highlighted in green. So stuff like this, and so forth. Yeah. So right here you see Universal Scene Description, or USD, and that brings me to how you get it loaded. Now, at the time of release, at least this one, right, I had to load it in a plugin. So I downloaded the plugin, I installed it, and then I went to Windows, Settings, Preferences, I went to the Plugin Manager, and then if you look for Maya USD, that's the one you want to load. So Maya USD plugin, click on loaded to load it, click on auto load to make sure it loads every time, and then you are good to go. Now you can see whether it's loaded correctly or not by, like I said, going up to the create menu, and if you see this guy right here, then you're good to go. Yeah. Okay, so what are your options with the USD? You can take a USD file into Maya and turn it into a Maya file, right? So you can just open it up as a USD. You can convert it to, let's say, an OBJ, save it out, and you're good. You can do that vice versa as well. So you can bring in an OBJ file or a regular model that you made in Maya, and then you can save it out as a USD file. So both of these are conversions, basically, yeah? But more importantly, what you can do is you can open a USD scene and you can work on it as a USD scene. And because of the composition arcs that we talked about, you have much more flexibility to work with your assets. And I don't know if I mentioned this before, but USD is also a great alternative for Alembic cache. Okay, with the plugin correctly loaded, you should see something like this. So if I went up to File and I went to Import, and let's say I want to import a USD set, right? I would open the option box here, and under File Type, I can go down and select USD Import. And that would allow me to import a USD set, right? And then I could go in, save it out as a Maya file, save it out as a Maya scene. Alternatively, I can select this guy. Now this is a USD scene, so I'm just going to go and make a new scene here, yeah? Okay, I can take a random cube, and normally you would, for example, save that out as an OBJ or whatnot. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go up to File, we're going to go to Export Selection in this case, Option Box, and then File Type, I can go in here, and again, USD Export. And I got all these different options to play with. Now that is all about conversion, but what if you want to load, let's say, a USD set? I will show you how fast this is, and it's really incredible, okay? What we're going to do here is, instead of going to Import, we're going to go up to Create, we're going to go to Universal Scene Description right here, and we're going to do Stage from File. Now, when I open the option box, I can have a path and all that kind of cool stuff right here, right? I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to go up to Create. We're going to go here, Stage from File. And I got this file here online, which is a kitchen set. And look at how fast this loads. And this is real time. Okay, here we go. Boom. And there you have it. Now, if we flip this around, let's see, like this, you see that there's a lot going on here, right? Really a lot. And yeah, it's not textured, I don't think so anyway, but a lot going on. And the cool thing is, if you compare a USD set to, let's say, a Maya file, they respond a lot the same. So if you had a USD set and I hit F to frame, for example, it would just work like that. If I had lighting set up, let me quickly do that. Let's create lights. Let's do a directional light. Let's bring that up. And this is just a Maya light, right? It's something like that. Let's rotate that a little bit. If I were to hit 7 on the keyboard, you'll see that this works perfectly with a USD set, okay? So this is a pretty big scene with a lot going on there. So again, it's speed, 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 okay? Just to illustrate a few more options that's available with USD is, if I got the scene selected and I were to hit 5, and there you go, there's our textures, or 6 or 7 to activate the lights. All of that can be done with a USD set, okay? All right, enough about USD. I encourage you to dive in and play with this and turn it into second nature, because this is super powerful. I know there is a super huge file that you can download from Pixar, which is USD set, and that is a good way to illustrate how fast this really is, okay? Like I said, enough about USD, let's move on. Okay everybody, well, let's dive into modeling and some new modeling features in Maya 2022. Well, this one is my absolute favorite. It's called Sweep Mesh, and if you are into modeling cables and wires and crown molding and pipes and all that kind of stuff, you are gonna love this. Let's jump into Maya. Okay, well, we're back in Maya. So let's say you have a scene where you need some cables or some ducts or crown molding, anything like that, right? What you would normally do is you would go up to Create and then CV Curve tool, something like that. There you go, and boom, 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 boom. Hit enter, there you go. And then you would create a face and extrude it, or do stuff like that, or revolve, or whatever type of process you normally use. Now, within Maya 2022, we can use Sweep Mesh. We have our curve selected here. We're going to go up to Create Sweep Mesh. Boom. As we do so, this whole set opens up in the attribute editor. And immediately you see that this is basically just click away, right? If you look at this thing right here, you see that we got a poly shape, and it says that it's 8-sided, and it's very intuitive. So if I bring this down to 4, you can see immediately what's going on, right? If I bump that up, there you go. What if I want this to be a star shape? Can do that as well, right? Open that up, there you go, star shape. What if I want caps on the end there? Boom, turn on caps. What if I want a distribution setup, similar to something that you would see in Mesh, right? Distribute, there you go. How many do you want? Do you want 5? Do you want more? Do you want less? What kind of distribution do you want? Do you want it to be radial? Do you want it to be square? You know, if we go to 4, there you go. Square distribution, we can go to radial, but because we have 4, we get this pattern right here. The scale instances, you can bring it up and down. You have all sorts of super cool things you can do. You can twist it around. Let's say you want to make a rope or a cable, anything like that. We'll go back up here. We'll take a rectangle instead. Let's, I don't know, let's see what we can do here. Number of instances, we'll increase that. You get the idea, right? Super simple, super intuitive, and you can even taper curves. You can do all of that stuff. What if you want a line, right? You got this kind of setup. What if you want an arc? Let's go back and set the distribution to let's do 1. There you go. Let's see, what if you want to have a wave? You can change the amplitude of the wave. You can bump that up or down depending on your preference. You can change the number of cycles. You can do all of that. And what's really cool about this is it's not a huge learning curve. I mean, you create a curve and you just start playing around with the settings in the attribute editor. That's basically all there's to it, right? So I heavily encourage you to play around with this because it will make your life so much easier. All right, moving on. Okay guys, well, next up in Maya 2022 is Create VR for Maya. And VR, of course, stands for virtual reality, right? So one of those VR headsets where you got the controls in your hand. Now, with a set like that, you can model in Maya, but even cooler, as a 2D artist, you can start working in 3D straight away. It allows you to make a drawing, and that will be set up in splines and curves and so forth. And based on these, you can straight up connect them and start to make your 3D models. Now, I've seen a couple of examples of things that have been created this way, like running shoes, but also kitchen appliances and really artsy stuff. I think it's really cool. It's not something I personally do, but for those of you who do, you are definitely going to love this. Okay, everybody, well, like I said in the beginning of the video, we don't want this to be a 4-hour review. So next up, we're going to look at a list of modeling improvements that are maybe somewhat smaller, but nevertheless very cool and very important. Here we go. Okay guys, next up is something that's really important for those of you who work in games or for games, right? And that is all about game vertex count. So Maya 2022 has a new feature that will allow you to count the number of verts on your asset for your game. Now, you're probably aware of this thing up here on the top left that you can pull up by going up to display, heads up display, and then click on poly count. And it shows a verts count of 180K. The thing is though, that when you are taking this asset into a game engine, the actual vert count can be very different. And that's why the new feature has been added. Now, the new feature is called a game vertex count HUD, or heads up display. and it's found right here. So go to heads-up display as before and activate game Vertex count. There you go. Now, like I said, verts in the scene 180K, game verts, however, 47. Very, very different. And again, if you have a budget, crucial information. Now, there is an option menu here as well. If you go up to display, heads-up display, and you go to game Vertex count and click on the option box, you have the option to choose, what type of a game engine you're working with. And there might be a change in the number. So we've got 47739. Let's click on Unreal. 47684. Let's click on Unity. 47739. There you go. Okay. So for those of you, again, working in games, very, very cool. Okay, everybody, well, next up, enhancements on pivot points and transforms. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this, but just to quickly show you, if we take an object, let's say a cylinder right here, and we, hit W to move it, we double click on the move tool, you now have the option to click on edit pivot. And when you do so, from there, you can basically drag it out, rotate it, do whatever you want, right? And then you click it again, and now if you hit E to rotate, boom, there you go. A lot of options here. Like I said, play with it. This is pretty intuitive, so moving on. We've got a lot to cover. Here we go. Okay guys, well, next up is transform. I like this one a lot. It's pretty cool. So I got three objects here, sphere, cube, and a cylinder. I'm going to drag select all three, and I want to change the transform, so I want to change the scale on all three. So I'm going to go into the channel box, I'm going to go to X here, set that to 2, I'll set this guy to 2, and I'll set this guy to 2, and there you go, all three. Now, there's an easier way now. So what we're going to do is we're going to select, we're going to hit Control Z to go back to our starting point. And what we're going to do instead is we're going to select all of these, and we're going to go up to modify, match transformation, and match scaling. Option box, right? All, why not? Match scaling. We're going to hit apply. And now I can go in here, and as I do so, there you go. Okay, now this improvement on the Extrude tool speaks for itself. Okay guys, well, next up is improvements on rigging and animation. Now, although I do some rigging and animation as a prop modeler, I'm certainly not an expert, and because of that, before I show you these improvements, I want to let you guys know that there's going to be a webinar tomorrow by Autodesk, and they have some very cool guests on board as well. And they're from Luma Pictures and Industrial Light and Magic. I'm pretty sure you heard of them. And they are going to go basically through everything. They're going to be talking about USD, rigging, animation, modeling, all that cool stuff, right? So again, it's tomorrow. It's at 12 o'clock EST or 5 p.m. CET. And there's a link below to register, right? Okay, so now let's dive into the improvements on rigging. Here we go. Okay everybody, well, first up in our rigging improvement overview, we're going to be talking about component tags. Now, component tags are basically selections of faces or vertices that you can save out under a name. So you can tag it, right? Now keep in mind that it's either or. You can't mix faces and vertices. You either have a group of vertices or you have a group of faces, but not mixed. But if you want both, you just make two tags because you can make an endless list, yeah? Now, before I show you how, what's the practical application? Let's say you have a character and you want to have a region of the top of the ear saved out, right, as a tag, because you want to deform it, you want to wiggle it, you want to do whatever, yeah? You can go into your component tag list, select that selection that you've made before and saved out, and add a deformer to it. Now with this hat, I'll just give you a quick demonstration of how it works, and then you got a better understanding of what to do with it, yeah? Okay, so if I select the hat itself, for example, and I open up the attribute editor, you will see that we now have something called component tags, yeah? What I'm going to do is I'm going to create a new one. So I'm going to go in here and I'm going to select simply one face, like so. Now again, keep in mind, this is not really a practical application, but in the case of a character, this could be a selection top of the ear, nose, and so forth. So I have that selection, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit the plus sign. It will create a new component tag. I'm going to double click on it, and I'll just call this random selection and hit enter, yeah? Okay, so now if I'm working on my model and I, for whatever reason, want to go back to that selection, I simply open up the component tag overview, click on it, and there is my selection, that single face that I did, yeah? Now, it doesn't really make sense to do a deformer on this one little face here, but for example, with this selected, I can extrude it. So we're gonna hit extrude, let's do, I don't know, 0.1, for example, and if we go in here, and hopefully you can see it, yeah, there you go, yeah, one face extruded. So it's really powerful, it's really cool, and there are a lot of amazing things you can do with this, so I really like it. Yeah, okay, moving on. Okay, everybody, well, next up in the rigging improvements, we're going to be talking about fall-offs. Now, if you work with characters and you do deformations, animations, and so forth, you are aware of weight painting. Now, many people do it, very few people like it. The cool thing about fall-offs is that it's an alternative for weight painting, but it's topology independent, which means that you can use a fall-off setup on one model, but also on another model, which is really cool. So how does that work? Well, I got this free model online. It's an orangutan, and yeah, that's his butt, yeah. Okay, and what we're going to do is we're going to select this guy and we're going to create a deform cluster. Yeah, there you go. That's been created, and next up what we're going to do is we're going to select this guy, open up the attribute editor, and open up the outliner, make sure we have our cluster selected right there. And then we're going to go in here under input attributes, and we're going to right click and go to assign primitive fall off, and we're going to create a primitive fall off. Now, as we do that, you see that we now have a sphere created right there. Okay, so we're going to select the primitive fall off that we created in combination with our cluster. Yeah. Let me just scale this down a little bit and move it down. And here you can see what the effect is. So if I go in here and I move this fall off up, you'll see it will start to impact that belly area, right? And depending on where it is, depending on how big it is, you'll see that the impact will be more or less, yeah? So let's make sure it's centered here. It is, yeah. So we can start to move that up here, impact the shape and size of that belly area, his butt, and so forth and so on, yeah? So that's how that works. It's very powerful. The cool thing about it, I think, is that it's topology independent. Like I said, I'm not really someone who does a lot of rigging, but I am sure I can find a lot of cool applications for this, right? So be creative and make it work for you. Okay, moving on. All right, well, next one is a nice improvement in the animation cache, especially for those of you who do a lot of animation and want to check out whatever you worked on in your viewport and not have to do a play blast every time, right? Small problem there, my system is too fast. I never thought I would say that, but the thing is, my system can easily hit the frame rate regardless of what I load, so I'll walk you through the process anyway, yeah? So we got this guy walking here. I'm just going to stop him, jump back to frame 1, and just to show you the settings, I'm at 24 frames per second times 1 right there. There you go. And what we're going to do is imagine that I have a frame rate of, let's say, 12 or 13 or something like that, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go down here, and here is your enable and disable cache, right? Right now it's disabled, and when I hit play, you can still see it easily hits 24 frames a second, right? Now, if you don't, what you do is you activate your cache, yeah? And then from there, if that will still not get you to the required frame rate, what you do is you right click on this guy, and then you go up and you select the viewport software cache, yeah? So normally I think this is the default, and as you can see, still 24. You go in here, set it to viewport cache, yeah? If that still doesn't get you where you want, right, what you can do, and let me just flush the cache out here for a sec. And while it's reloading, it will slow down a little bit, okay? So what you can do next is you can right click and you can go into cache playback preferences. And the next up, what you would do to speed things along, obviously make sure you got cache playback selected. And then what you want to do here is cache smooth meshes. Now, when I turn that off, again, you know, it's still easily at 24. But these are the steps, okay? So one more time, we'll just shut everything down. You go from disabled cache, you enable it, right? Right click, make sure you got software cache selected, and then what you're gonna do is go to playback preferences, select cache playback, and make sure you have cache smooth meshes. Okay everybody, well, next up is the ghosting editor. Now if you are an animator, you know about ghosting. For those of you who don't, basically you have kind of a somewhat transparent image, which is a frame previous to your current one or after your current one, to help you decide, you know, where you need to put key poses and where you need to do in-betweens, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a quick animation right here, and then I'll show you how it works. So we're going to take a simple sphere, nothing fancy. We're just going to go to frame 1. We're going to keyframe that. Let's go to, I don't know, frame 30, that's fine. And it really doesn't matter what type of animation we do. It's just for demonstration purposes, yeah? So I'll go back to frame 60 and keyframe that again, and there you have it. And then we'll set this to 60. So if I hit play, you see a sphere moving around, and that's all there's to it. Okay. So I got this selected. What I'm going to do next is make sure I'm in the animation menu up here, and then I'm going to go up to visualize and go to open ghosting editor. Now I have the sphere selected, and with that selected I can go up to create ghost from selection. Now when I click that, and let me just go up here, yeah, when I click that and I hit play, look what happens. So you see a number of positions or ghosts following my current frame, right? Now I can set it to 1s, yeah, to 2s, to 4s, and I think I need to stop it to do that. Hang on. Yeah, there you go. So 1s, I can set it to 2s, 4s, 5s, 10s, basically whatever you want. You can also do custom and then choose frame steps. Okay, I'm going to leave it on 1s for now. You can go in here, you can change the pre-frame color. So let's say you want the pre-frame to be yellow and you want the post frame to be, you know, whatever, hard pink, I guess that is, yeah. And let's hit play. I'm only seeing the pre-frame right now, but let's select the second position here, and now I see them both, yeah. And now while I'm on 2s, you can see that going on. And I can also, for example, go in and change the opacity if I want to. Okay, so I can set the opacity to a very low position. I can do that with this one as well. You get the idea, yeah? So really cool, really fun. Again, you got the option here to do pre-frames, do pre and post frames, stepped frames, or custom frames, yeah? So definitely check that out. Okay, moving on. Alrighty, well, as I mentioned in the beginning of the video, it's impossible to cover everything. There are a lot more enhancements, new features, and so forth and so on. A couple I want to mention though are related to animation. So the graph editor has some new additions. The time editor has been improved, and the time slider now has the option to bookmark. I think that's really cool. There's going to be a lot postings on Maya 2022 as of today moving forward, but definitely check out the webinar that's going to be done by Autodesk tomorrow, right? I'll make sure the link is available below. Let me know if you enjoyed this video. Thank you so much for watching. It's been almost half an hour. I hope you enjoyed it. Okay, see you guys next time. Bye. Well, thanks for watching, and before you go, please hit that MH button to subscribe, okay? See you guys next time. Bye.